We've covered 10 weeks of music already, and we've gone from what the heck kind of music is this to, oh my goodness, listen to Maria play. We've covered historic albums going back to the 30s and newer stuff coming into the 90s. So, with that, welcome to the 10 on 10 as we recap the last 10 albums that we have covered.
So I'm just going to jump right in and say, yeah, thanks for joining us this morning, Drew. Why don't you start with the first album that we're gonna?
All right. So many weeks ago, we covered number 70, the album Art Ensemble of Chicago, Fanfare for the Warriors on Atlantic, and it was recorded in 1974.
Next up, number 69, we've got Art Tatum and Ben Webster. The name of the album is Art Tatum Ben Webster Quartet, and it was on the Verve label, and it was released on LP and CD, recorded in 1956.
Number 68, we had John Handy, recorded live at the Monterey Jazz Festival. That was recorded on Columbia, LP, and on CD, it was Koch. And that was recorded at the Jazz Festival in 1965.
Next up, number 67, we've got Jelly Roll Morton. And the name of the album is Birth of the Hot, the classic Chicago Red Hot Peppers 1926 through 27. It was released on the RCA Bluebird label on CD, and it was released in 19... it was just released on the RCA Bluebird label.
1920...
6 and 27.
1906 and 27.
Yep.
Number 66, Oliver Nelson, The Blues and the Abstract Truth. That was on the Impulse label on LP and CD, and that was released 1961.
Number 65 on the list, Betty Carter. The name of the album is The Audience with Betty Carter, and it was on the Bet Carr Records label on LP, and it was released on CD on the Verve label, and it was released in 1979, Betty Carter.
And number 64, the nose flute playing, 3 saxophone holding, Roland Kirk on We Free Kings, and that is We Free, F-R-E-E, We Free Kings, Mercury label, LP and CD, and that was recorded in 1961 also.
Number 63 on the list, Maria Schneider. The name of the album is Concert in the Garden, and it was released on Artist Share. You had to go purchase that one, and it wasn't released on CD or LP. You had to go right to Artist Share and get that one, and it was recorded the 8th through the 11th of March 2004. Maria Schneider.
Taking it from the calm music to the 1954 and 1955 album. It was number 62 on the countdown. It was Lennie Tristano, and that was on Atlantic, LP, and CD.
Rounding out this week's top 10, this week's 10 for 10, number 61 was the Esbjorn Svensson Trio. The name of the album is From Gagarin's Point of View. It was on the Act label on CD and LP, and it was recorded November 1998. So let me ask you this. Out of this 10, which of the albums have you gone back to over the last year?
Art Tatum, Ben Webster, done that one a lot. Oliver Nelson, probably weekly, if not twice a week. Obviously, Maria Schneider is always in my ear, and it may not be Gagarin's Point of View from EST, but you can bet that I've gone back to a lot of EST. Roland stuff, yes. What about you?
Well, that John Handy album really kind of blew me away too. I gave it a good score, and it's kind of the one. It's fun to listen to because it's a live album, and I like the live a little bit better because, again, the musicians have to be on point the whole time. It's not like a studio CD where you can cut and splice and retake and dub over. So the live one by John Handy for sure. And like you, Oliver Nelson, that's not even a question. It's in my ears at least probably once a week. Maria and EST, two banging albums right there that you can't go wrong listening to those. So the one that I kind of shied away from or haven't been back too much for me was Betty Carter. We're vocal jazz snobs. It's not that we're not vocal jazz fans. It's just we're snobs. And I don't know. It's a hard one for me to go back to and listen to Betty Carter.
With the exception of recording, I would probably not go back to Lennie, except for just to hear, again, what it is why it was on this list. Does it make sense? But very rarely would I'll jump back to that. And for all of y'all following us on this, don't forget that these were albums that we have already covered. We're just recapping so that you hear which ones we've already talked about. By now, they've already been on YouTube, so you can always go back and listen to our dialogue about which ones shook the world. The Art Tatum Ben Webster one was a really cool episode because we had Dave G, who had gone and reported live from the monument in the middle of Toledo, Ohio, for Art Tatum. And so that was just really a cool episode.
That episode was so much fun to pre-plan that with Dave G and get his take. He's a professional and he has done those kinds of reporting things professionally. So to have someone of his caliber on the episode was pretty cool. Anyways, Art Ensemble of Chicago. I have not gone back to that, but again, it doesn't mean that I won't in the future. I just haven't gone back to that one. You like Jelly Roll. I'm surprised you didn't say Jelly Roll.
I did. The first week we went through it and we rated it. I gave it a pretty middle of the road score at 5.5. But going back later, it's like Big Spiderbeck. You don't realize the history of where it's coming from. And the more we've come along in this journey, I mean, we're 40 albums in already. And you start to recognize the historical impact that albums like that have made or that musicians have made. And so Jelly Roll and Bix, going back to the Woody Herman stuff, all of those albums really started to shake me a little bit more. And you're paying attention not to the jazz that you assume is jazz, the 40s, 50s, or 60s, but you get back to the origination of jazz music, Pops and Louis Armstrong, Pops, but Joe Oliver. And you start to hear where it all originated from. In this current week, listening to the guitarist that we've got in our ears and hearing the historical impact of him, you start to think about where people like Benny Goodman, Lionel Hampton, where their music originated, and consider them as the beginning of jazz music. So Jelly Roll, I'll go back and listen, maybe not to that particular album, but to some of his works and really enjoy it. Hot jazz.
Well, and it's a milestone for us because, like you said, this is 40 weeks that we've been on the journey, and we're starting to appreciate, I think, a little more. If that Lennie Tristano album would have been at number 100, we might not have continued with the journey. It would just be like, if this is what it is, then I'm not sure I want to do this. But being 40 weeks in, we can appreciate like the musicality, the technicality, and rise above. Well, we didn't like it, but it is impressive.
It always reminds me, though, that in a quote that I use from Magnus Ostrom on EST's album, if we'd only listened to jazz, we would have played very differently. And I think that, yes, we're doing jazz 100 albums, but there's such a diversity and a width and a depth to what we're listening to that we're incorporating a lot about where it came from, where it's going, where it's heading, or where it originated. I mean, flat out, we're learning a lot about what jazz is, the creativity, the awareness of the artist, all those things that we've always rated.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, and the good thing is again, because we're on the journey, and we're kind of forcing ourselves to do it album by album, week by week. We're, even though some of them are forced and we have to listen to, man, we get to listen to a lot of great music, and go back and watch our Maria Schneider episode or the Esbjorn Svensson Trio episode, and just you can see the joy that we get each week by listening to albums like that. So it's a great journey. I'm glad we're doing it.
So I want to ask you this: if you've got your notes in front of you of the albums, your top 3 go-to albums to tell anybody to go listen to. What are your top 3 from this last 10 weeks that you would say, please go listen to?
Blues and the Abstract Truth, Oliver Nelson, number 1, no questions. No questions. I might, in discussion with someone that I'm recommending it to, I might find out what kind of music they like, and if they, depending on what they tell me, Art Tatum and Ben Webster for sure. If they're say, give me something with an old classic feel, Art Tatum and Ben Webster, and then if they say, well, I don't like jazz, so tell me what I should listen to, I'm going to recommend Esbjorn Svensson, because it's kind of a crossover, third stream. It's not in your face hardcore swinging jazz. And that's just me. What about you?
It's interesting because my album would have been, for the same reason, EST, as Maria Schneider. It is a crossover album, and nobody will have a question of, what am I listening to? It's amazing music. It's beautiful music. It is a pay-to-play music, so you don't get the freebie online, but there's plenty of YouTube videos where you can hear her orchestration. So Maria Schneider would be one of those. Oliver Nelson, without a question, Blues and the Abstract Truth. To listen to the song Stolen Moments and Freddie Hubbard's solo on it, I mean, just come on. And then the way they trade instruments between trumpet and sax in that album, or on Stolen Moments to begin with. I put John Handy as my straight go-to. It's a live album. The songs are long, but it's live. And it's at a festival, so you kind of get that. Got to place yourself there. It's a festival, and then just go from there. So John, Oliver, and Maria Schneider would be my top 3.
It's great picks. Those are great picks. All right. Well, hey, that wraps up this 10 for 10. Thank you guys so much for joining us again today.
10 minutes just went so quick today, but
well, I know. But stay with us, because hey, you know what? Coming up in the next 10 weeks, we'll do another one of these. We've got some banging albums coming up that we're going to review in the next 10 weeks. And you know what? We'll be halfway done with our journey at that point. We'll be going 61 to 50. So thank you so much.
About halfway there. So you can always find us on our website, theunconnoisseur.com. Drop us an email at theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. Check out Matt banging it out on the TikTok at The Unconnoisseur. And of course, you're here on YouTube at The Unconnoisseur. Make sure to like and subscribe as you see fit, as you listen to them. And please do us a favor, just like Dad does, share The Unconnoisseur's YouTube channel with everybody you come across. So from us to you, cheers, everybody.
Cheers.